Hello everyone, it's Robin the Delta Crafter, and I'm back today with a card inspired by a logo. There's an outerwear company called Patagonia, and their logo depicts various different landscapes that may be seen when you're out and about in their products. So that's what inspired today's cards. The products that I'm going to be using to make today's card, the list is kind of short. Yes, there are several different inks, but other than that, there aren't a whole lot of things. So I'm going to be using Nina Classic Crest Solar White in 80 pound for my card panel. I'm also going to be using the Winter Woods Heroscape stamp set and die set from Hero Arts. And those are going to be, we're going to be using many parts of that stamp set. I'm going to be using my Misty, as well as 6 different distress ink colors. I'm going to be using Abandoned Coral, Wild Honey, Picked Raspberry, Peacock Feather, Salty Ocean, and Wilted Violet. Let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing that I wanted to do was to show you the parts of the stamp set that I'm going to be using. The backer of the Hero Arts Heroscape stamp sets always show you how the parts and pieces are to be layered. For today's card, I'm only going to be using the top and middle stamps for the layering effect that we're going to be creating. So here I am showing you which of those stamps I'm going to be using. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to set up our Misty. We're going to be stamping 3 separate panels with the same stamps, but in different colors. So we're going to have 2 colors per panel. So the best thing for us to use, and this is where using a Misty comes in real handy for this particular card, is that we're going to set up our Misty with the stamps so that we can just easily repeat stamp those stamps on the different panels, on 3 separate panels. So I'm going to set up the topmost stamp at the very top of my Misty. So I'm going to put that down, and I want to apologize, you guys, for this video. There was a little bit, the table moved a little bit more than it normally does in my videos, so I'm going to apologize for that up front. So I'm going to start off by stamping that very first very first stamp with Abandoned Coral. And what I'm going to do for each stamp, and I didn't keep this in the video, but I'm going to stamp each one twice. So I'm going to put down a layer of Abandoned Coral, and I'm going to come back in with a second layer of Abandoned Coral. And again, I apologize for the wobbly table. I'm working on that. So then I move my panel down to the bottom left corner of my Misty, and I line up that second layer of the stamping set, the Heroscape set, because they fit together. So I'm lining that up with the top stamp. Sorry for my head there. And now I'm going to secure that to my Misty door and make sure that my panel stays in place. And now I'm going to come in with the Wild Honey. So the Wild Honey is my second color. So I give that a nice coating of the ink. And again, I apologize for the wobbly table. I'm going to press that down, excuse me, and get my first layer of ink onto my panel. And then again, I'm going to come back in with a second layer of ink. So now that I have my stamps all in place, I can come in and easily create my second and third panel. So I'm coming in with the Picked Raspberry for the top stamp, putting that down. And again, I stamped that twice. And then now I can come in with the Peacock Feathers. These colors are coming together so vibrant and pretty. I love them. Now I've added a layer of Salty Ocean to my top stamp, and Wilted Violet rounds out the group with our 6th and final color. So here you can see all 3 panels with all 6 colors and how they layered together. Now that the panels are finished, it's time to die cut them out. So the dies for this stamp set, they come with a die for each of the layers. Because we put two of the layers together, we only really need to use one of the dies, and that was the one that fits the very top layer. So here you can see all three panels have been die cut with that very top, the die that fits the top layer of the HeroScape stamps. So now I'm trying to figure out what layer, or what arrangement rather, I want my layers to be in. And I think I've hit the nail on the head. I absolutely love the way these colors come together. So now that I have my arrangement figured out, it's time to adhere the panels to each other. And I'm going to show you a mistake that I made. You can tell on the left hand side, the way that I position the stamp, the die kind of cut off just a small portion of the left hand side of each panel. And what that does is it creates an uneven side on the left side. Well, here I am trying to use that left side to get my panels aligned correctly, and I realize after I've kind of pressed down just a tiny bit that left side is probably not the side I need to use. I need to use the right side, which is still straight and smooth from the original cutting. Excuse me. And so I pull them apart, and I'm going to reposition those panels and have them all adhere to each other. So I've got two panels together. Now it's time to add a third panel. I'm going to do that really quick. And you may be thinking, this is going to be longer than a typical card, which, by the way, this is going to make an A2 card, which is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches in size. And so, yes, these when I glue all the panels together, they are going to be longer than an A2 card, but we're going to cut them down. And so you can see the right side is flush and everything aligns, and then the left side is not. So I'm going to take this panel to my trimmer, and I actually trimmed it down to now it is 4 inches wide. So that will give us a slight white border around around the panel as we go to assemble our card. So I've decided that the white part at the bottom of the card is just a little too stark for me. So in this set, there is a stamp that makes your snow look like it has some dimension, gives a little nooks and crannies and shades that in. So I'm using that stamp to put some speckled egg ink. There it is, speckled egg. And I'm going to give a little bit of shading and dimension to the snow at the bottom of the scene. And again, I apologize for the wobbly table. And again, I stamped this twice to make sure that we have good coverage and depth of color. So I've stamped the snowbank twice, and I did trim it down a little bit to make sure that the panel fit on my card, and it left me a little bit of space at the top of the card because I didn't want the peaks of the trees to go off the card. So just like at the bottom of the card where the white part was a little too stark, the same is happening for me at the top of the card. So what I'm doing is I'm using a Post-it note to tape off just a white border at the top of the card, because I do want to kind of have an even white border around the entire card. And I take the snow stamp that's included in the set, and I stamp that again with the speckled egg ink. Now it's time to really assemble the card and put the panels together. So I'm going to take our stamped panel and I'm going to adhere it to the card base, which, by the way, that's the snowflakes I stamped were actually on the card base. So I'm going to attach the stamped panel to the card base, and I'm going to use my tweezers to do it because I want to, again, ensure that I get that white border around the entire panel. And it's a little bit harder to do when you have a die cut top of your stamped panel. But I was able to secure it and get it in place exactly where I wanted it to be. For the sentiment that I'm going to add to the card, it also was included in the stamp set. And it says, "Sending winter wishes." So I'm going to stamp that with the Hero Arts Intense Black ink. I'm going to show that in just a second. And I'm going to stamp that twice. Again, there it is, Hero Arts Intense Black ink. I'm going to stamp that twice like I've done everything else, just to make sure that I have good depth of coverage, and that my sentiment is clear and crisp. So I trimmed that sentiment down to make sure that it fit the panel, the card nicely, and I put a piece of foam tape on the back of the panel. Back of the sentiment to pop it up. I made sure that the edge of the sentiment lined up with the left edge of the inked panel, and with that, we have completed the card. I hope you have enjoyed this tutorial today, and if you have, please consider giving this video a thumbs up and hitting that subscribe button. You can always find me on Instagram, Facebook at The Delta Crafter, and be sure to stop by my blog, thedeltacrafter.com, for more ideas and inspiration. Until next time, everyone, enjoy!